What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Wednesday, April 28th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 10-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Ja Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Ja Morant has averaged 35.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. But he scored 43, 44, and 62 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 30, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 36.9 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 40 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. His price has come up because he's been performing so well, so he's now $8,100 FanDuel salary and $100 more on DraftKings. He scored 44, 62, 44, 45, and 41 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Trailblazers, so that's excellent player versus team history. His lowest fantasy score in his last 5 games was 34 fantasy points. Outside of that, he scored in the 40s, 60s, and 70s, so he is on fire. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 235 points scored in this game, a super high scoring game, a fantastic matchup. So I like Ja Morant here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, another point guard that I like is Lonzo Ball from the New Orleans Pelicans playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a middle of the pack defense overall. And although they're pretty good versus opposing point guards, Lonzo Ball has averaged 31.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He scored 41, 34, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 34, and 24 minutes. He's projected at 30.7 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 34 fantasy points or more and get you over 5 times value. He's $6,500 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game, so I like Lonzo Ball here versus the Denver Nuggets. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like DeMar DeRozan from the San Antonio Spurs playing the Miami Heat, who have a good defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing shooting guards. DeMar DeRozan has averaged 39 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. He scored 52 and 50 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 40 and 37 minutes. He's projected at 39.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. I think he can score over 40 fantasy points here, get you over 5 times value. He's $8,100 FanDuel salary and $300 more on DraftKings. He scored 25, 45, 51, 46, and 53 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Heat. So I like DeMar DeRozan here versus the Miami Heat. Okay, another shooting guard that I like is Jordan Clarkson from the Utah Jazz playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the third worst defense overall, and they give up the second most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Jordan Clarkson has averaged 27.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 35, 33, and 29 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 26, 28, and 28 minutes. He's projected at 30.4 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score you 33 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's $6,300 FanDuel salary, and he's $600 more on DraftKings. So I like that FanDuel price. He scored 30 and 30 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Kings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. So I like Jordan Clarkson here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, who do we have at the small forward position? I'm going to pay up here. I like Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the 13th worst defense overall, and they give up the 13th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jimmy Butler has averaged 46.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 56, 44, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 34, 35, and 37 minutes. He's projected at 47.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $9,500 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. He scored 43 fantasy points in his last game versus the Spurs, so I like Jimmy Butler here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, another small forward that I like is Cedi Osman from the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Orlando Magic, who have the 5th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Cedi Osman has averaged 19.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. But take a look at his last 2 games. He scored 28 and 30 fantasy points, playing 38 and 37 minutes. So his minutes per game are way up, so is his production, and he's projected at 25.3 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's 4.6 times value because he's $5,500 FanDuel salary, but he's $500 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. He would get you over 5 times value on DraftKings if he can score 26 fantasy points, which I think he's certainly capable of. He scored 28, 43, and 39 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Magic. So I like Cedi Osman here versus the Orlando Magic. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like Anthony Davis from the LA Lakers playing the Washington Wizards, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and although they've been pretty good versus opposing power forwards, Anthony Davis has averaged 42.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. Now, he recently came back from injury. They've been slowly increasing his minutes. So in the past 3 games, he scored 33, 24, and 15 fantasy points, but he was only playing 31, 28, and 16 minutes. So he played 31 minutes last game. I expect him to get over 30 minutes here tonight. So I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more. We know Anthony Davis has monster upside. He's $9,500 FanDuel salary, and he's $300 less on DraftKings. So 50 fantasy points would be over 5 times value on both sites. And I like this pick because he scored 54 and 57 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Wizards. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 224 points scored in this game. So I like Anthony Davis here versus the Washington Wizards. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, another power forward that I like is Aaron Gordon from the Denver Nuggets playing the New Orleans Pelicans, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Aaron Gordon has averaged 27.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He scored 27, 12, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 22, 19, and 27 minutes. He's projected at 25.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's just about 5 times value. He's $5,200 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 228.5 points scored in this game, so I like Aaron Gordon here versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Rudy Gobert, who's always underpriced, from the Utah Jazz playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 3rd worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing centers. Rudy Gobert has averaged 41 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 37, 27, and 47 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 34, 36, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 41.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $7,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $400 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but I love that FanDuel price. He scored 28, 60, 40, 15, and 51 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Kings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225.5 points scored in this game. It's a fantastic matchup. Just think that FanDuel price is way too low, so I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, the other center that I like is Enes Kanter from the Portland Trailblazers playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the 11th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing centers. Now, Enes Kanter hasn't been playing as many minutes as he did earlier in the season, but he's still able to score 36, 22, and 21 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 15, 14, and 18 minutes. Also, this is a back-to-back, so he only played 15 minutes yesterday, so he could get 20 minutes or more here in this one and put up a pretty big stat line. He's projected at 25.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $4,900 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 235 points scored in this game, so a super high scoring game with a ton of fantasy points to go around. So I like Enes Kanter here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.